boy. It hasn't worked enough with the.
Hello, everybody. Welcome
Hey
back to
everyone.
another episode and of Max on Color. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hello, Diego. How are you?
I'm fine, Max. Here is a beautiful day. I'm in Bogota, Colombia, and I'm waiting for this show. I'm really excited about what Gino is going to talk today.
Exactly. We are joined by Gino Amadori. Yeah, I hope I'm not butchering your last name, Gino. I'm sorry.
Nah, it's all good. Hello, guys. How are you?
And Gino is a colorist based in LA, and he's been color grading since, like, I don't know, maybe since I haven't started yet. So I'm really looking forward to this episode for sure, because I'm really looking forward to learn how Gino handle things in color grading, isn't it, Diego?
Yeah, and actually, we've been talking in most of the shows about fiction, about movies, about I don't know, recreating looks and so on. But we never
Yeah.
talk about documentals. And documentals is such an important part of what we see in television. And I always say that, I mean, when you shoot a documental, it's harder than when you
Yeah.
shoot fiction. Also happen in grading. In grading, when you
Yes.
start grading documentals, it's definitely more harder than when you have a fiction when let's think that everything is more control. Documentals are
Absolutely.
hard.
Absolutely. And today, we're going to chat a little bit with Gino about that, how he approached that, and hopefully we can learn some tips and tricks along the way as well. And before we start, let me share you my screen, and let me do some a little bit housekeeping. So, if you are into webinars, if you want to watch more webinars about either color grading, Cinema 4D, or Universe Redshift, or anything, you can go to Maxon Color and maxon.net. Sorry. Maxon.net/events, and there you'll be able to see a lot of webinars that is hosted at Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. So, for example, on Monday there will be demystifying post productions, and next up, Ellie will have another project breakdown about Redshift. So make sure you tune in if you are want to learn more about Cinema 4D, Redshift, or any of Maxon product. So if you're new to this webinar, I would love to point you out that you can get merchandise, free t-shirt, everybody. So if you're new to the show, you are eligible to get a one free t-shirt, and I will post the link into the chat um, later, and you will have to follow that link and enter the code Cinema 4D Workflows to be able to enter the shop, and you'll get to order one of this t-shirt. All you need to pay is just the small shipping cost. And this show is recorded, so if you want to rewatch the show, you can simply go to YouTube and type in Maxon Training Team, and in the playlist, you'll be able to see the session that we're doing today with Gino. And before we start, let's say hi to our audience. Creative VFX Studio is in the chat. David Edwin, AE Explorations. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. And let's
have fun.
Let's have fun. Exactly. So, Gino, thank you so much for joining us today, Gino.
Thanks for having me. Really a pleasure.
It's like what Diego said. We've been talking a lot about color grading, and we love color grading, and we try to break down movies, and we try to break down some tips and tricks. But what we haven't done this year is like talking about documentary, and talking why documentary project is so special. And I think it is like the best approach to just talk to the expert and let the expert explain to us. And I think Gino is owning the documentary domain. And if you want to check more of Gino's work, you can go to gammapost.pe. And what about if we play one of your reel before we start, Gino?
Excellent. That would be great. Thanks.
Awesome.
That was really nice.
Thanks.
That was really nice.
Yeah,
That was
because
really
you
nice.
have a mixture of commercials, some video clips, documentaries.
It's the least that has is documentaries, really. But on the new one I'm doing, I'm gonna put some more stuff from documentaries because there's some really nice stuff that I've been working on, especially for like reenactments and stuff like that, which I really like.
Yeah, and I guess it's also because, I mean, video clips, commercials is more clean image. is more like attractive to see that at some point documentals. That is more, yeah, it's beautiful, but it will not be like a, I don't know, like a aesthetic image and so on, right?
It's less of a controlled environment altogether. So you're just shooting as you go. You've got different cameras. I mean, they're not all rigged and stuff. They're like more like shoot and like, run and gun sort of setup, right? So it's it's more like it's a bit harder sometimes because you don't have controlled environments and there's so many different cameras being used or sources being used that it makes it a bit harder than all the rest, I think.
As one of the audience pointed out in the chat, it's really beautiful. I do agree with that.
Yeah,
Oh,
And
thank you. Thank you
as
so
I
much.
see that, you're not just making things look okay, looks normal, looks natural. You just add some, magic dust on it to make it like look very round and very finished and very rich.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's actually start by knowing you, Gino. I
Yeah.
mean, where are you now? Definitely, you're not American because of your accent. Where are you? Tell us about you, man.
Well, I'm from Peru originally, and I started working in Peru like
Oh,
around.
Gino froze a little bit.
Am I
Gino
okay
froze a
now?
little bit. Don't worry about it.
Am I
Let's
good now?
wait for Gino to come back a little bit.
Am I back?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. He's back.
Good, good, good.
Perfect. So yeah, as I was saying, I'm from Peru, born and raised there. I studied some in school in England, and then went back to Peru where I finished off my studying, and then I decided to start working in color grading, So it was like, sorry, in editing first. So it was I'm originally from Peru, but I am now in LA, in California, in Burbank, like for 6 months now almost. And I'm trying to get into this exciting market, Still working for Peru and other places as well from here with remote.
So, what was the reason for you to move from editing to color? And first, what did you study in England? Did you study economics, laws, architecture?
School.
At the school,
I
okay.
I think the thing is that when I was young, like 14, I had a brain hemorrhage that like really messed me up a little bit. So I wasn't doing great at school here. So my mom and stepfather said that it would be best if I finish off my school in England because it
All
was
right.
smaller classrooms. So I finished off school there, then went back to Peru. I really did not know what I wanted to do. So my aunts and everyone like convinced me to study hotel management, which I
Right.
did.
Mm.
And halfway through that career, I realized that I did not like that so much, but what I really was passionate about, and had been passionate about it for like all my life, was film and video, and then doing features and telling stories. That was my true passion, I think. And so when I realized that, I started working and started doing editing stuff, like really for my cousins' birthdays and stuff like that. Really, because I mean, I had no studies, so I had to start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
started doing that, and then I had like this luck that I was called from a company editor that they did documentaries. The company is called Pacha Films, and so they pulled me in as an editor. I had no experience. I told them I did though, like uh, corporate video. I said.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that was like my first step into editing, and I did that for like what 5 years, and then I realized that I also like to finish the edits I did with some color and make them look nice, make them look like as nice as I could, really. And that was when I found out and I realized that I really liked color grading and that there was a career that you could do doing
Wow.
that, because I had no idea.
That's good. But even if something you say something important is that you born in a Spanish speaking country, and at some point what gave you the opportunity to jump into editing documentaries was that you speak English.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a big plus, really, because they cared more about that than all my experience because this was all
Yeah,
stuff
they
for,
actually don't care about your experience. They just say like, we need a person to speak English.
yeah, basically. And I was really like, I mean, I
So
was really dedicated. So they noticed that and they put me to test 1 week and they say, okay, you're in. And I had to
so
learn
so
that week. It was hard.
so that's probably your hotel management school helps, because you can connect with people like better. Because in the end, doing color grading is like working with clients. It's probably like help you a little bit in there, or
Yeah,
massively.
I feel I'm a good host when people come. Like I
Yeah,
like to like say, hey, you need something, please.
Yeah, you are.
that's really
Yes, you
great.
are.
Yeah, so
Yes.
So, Gino, since you are used to based in Peru and now is based in LA, and you're still moving, doing project in Peru and in LA, so how does it like? How does the industry looks like? How different does the market looks like in Peru and in LA? Is there like a significant difference?
well, it's there's much more work here, I think, or there was much more work before the strike, at least, because as you know, I mean, I moved here in March, at ends of March, and the strike started like a month later. So I feel I haven't really had that full experience of being here. But I've been working in independent features, like I've done two or three. I'm on the works now. I've been the latest one. But yeah, I feel it's a bit slow at the moment, but I mean, it was like this is a huge market. There's so much opportunity here, much more than in Peru, no, I think.
Yeah,
And the prices are much better too. I mean, it's
that's
even though
really
it's
great.
lower than before, it's better than what we get in Peru. I think that there's a bigger and a much more evolved industry here. It's the mecca for me.
Yeah, and for example, what was the reason? Because I mean, I think you start independent, then you start Gamma Post, that is your hotel. Sorry, your color company.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, let's move to Burbank. When you already have clients in Lima, and you were like already established company over there.
Yeah. Well, I started off, as you said, I started off working for this company called Pacha Films, doing my editing and stuff. Then on Resolve 8.5, 8.6, I decided to jump to Resolve. I went to New York and I took a course with Warren Eagles. So
Ah, yeah,
he taught me way back. I took the three courses and I had it clear. Then I came back to Peru and went back to Peru. And then I started working in Da Vinci ever since then. And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I haven't stopped.
And I
It's
think
been,
back in the day, finding out like courses or finding out like a training material
It
on
was
color
hard.
grading is a little bit like
it
a
was
bit
not that.
hard, right?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not
Black
like
Magic
today.
had just acquired
Yeah,
Da Vinci, from Da Vinci. So it
yeah,
was like $1,000 when I got it. It wasn't what it was now, and it was a bit more expensive before that. That's when I was starting to notice it, because I was
yeah,
looking into Baselight, I was looking into that, but it was so expensive that it was impossible for someone like me, an independent person, to invest in that.
exactly. And yeah, Resolve has like a lower barrier to entry, to so to say.
I mean,
And
it's more like you can expand from a laptop or an iPad, you can
mhm,
expand to whatever your budget allows you to.
yeah.
It's a really great application.
So speaking on applications, since you are choosing documentary project mostly, and you're not mostly, but you have majority, not majority. How do I say it?
You
You're
do.
doing a lot of documentary projects, right? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why documentary project? What's so special about documentary project,
I
Gino?
mean, I not only do documentaries, I do a lot of advertisement that you
Yes,
could see on the reel, because I
exactly.
think that's the one that has like one of the best, like it's money wise, it's like the best, I think, because it pays better.
Commercials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
commercials. It's a bit more cumbersome sometimes because it goes into a lot more detail than the others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, documentary was like what I was born with in the industry, I think, and that's why I keep on doing it. I know how to do it pretty well. I've been doing it for 15 years now, 10 years grading it. So it's like easy for me just to my
Yeah.
workflows and stuff, and I just like it. I don't know.
Do you want
It's
to
a
give us
challenge
a?
sometimes.
Do you want to give us a peek on your workflow on documentary project, Gino?
Sure, of course, of course,
Awesome.
of course.
Let
I've put
me
something together.
All
let me
right.
add your
Perfect. Yeah, and at some point, while Gino is like sharing the screen, I will say that documentaries is like you go more. I don't know. It's like you feel the story, you get the go engaged with the characters, places, it's like traveling, but without traveling. Actually, it's like staying there, knowing places. I'm sure probably if you are doing documentaries in Peru, you have done documentaries about the Incas, empire. I don't know, food, all of that beautiful things you had it. So it's like grading and learning at some point, right?
Well,
Yeah.
it's my documentaries are mostly about current affairs stuff. I've done so much stuff about narcos in Mexico and
All
like
right.
narco
Mm.
weapons, and it's not like nice per se. It's a
But
bit
it's learning
stressful,
at least.
but you
Yeah.
do learn so much with it. It's like it's really interesting because there's some, as you say, there's learn behind every documentary.
Yes,
So
All
yes,
it's
right.
it's great.
Gino, would you mind reshare your screen? I think
Yeah,
we had
sure.
a technical problem a little bit before.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll just reshare it right now.
No
Let,
problem.
let me find um
And what about you, Diego? Do you also do documentary projects
I actually
once in
like
a
a
while?
lot. I like a lot documentals. At some point when I start like studying, I don't know, film and so on, what I
Hmm.
wanted more is to make documentals because I
Yeah.
like history. I like a lot of history. At some point, I like to tell stories. So before going to grading, before going to post production, my main goal was, hey, I want to be I don't know, a director of documentaries.
Wow.
So I like that. I like story. I like stories. I like people. I like to know new things. So I definitely think that one of my favorite things to do is documentary and to watch. Actually, I really love to
Exactly.
watch.
I really love watching documentary. I mean, sometimes if you just want to relax and not to like immerse yourself in a story or something, watching documentary can be a really great escape. I really love it.
yeah.
Yeah, depend of the documentary, right?
Yeah.
I think if it's a documentary about narcos, it will be not escape so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty. Let me make the screen bigger.
All right,
Okay.
perfect. Now you see
So,
it. All right, we see it. Good.
Excellent. So, I mean, let me just get started with this. For me, one of the greatest challenges of documentary is that is trying to get like put all the different pieces together.
mhm.
What I mean by that is that you got stuff from, for example, Alexa, you got stuff from Sony, you got stuff from Red, you got stuff from Archive. They're all in different color spaces. So for me, the first step to like documentary is getting organized with the footage, you know. And what I tend to do is I do first I try to put them in colors so I know what comes from where, so it's easier. And then I also put a keyword on it so that, for
That's in the
example,
edit page, right?
yeah, I'm on the edit page here. Well, the
So you
keywords
you
are put
color
in the
code.
media page actually.
I see. I see.
So
Cool.
if I am doing like this black magic row, I can put in the keyword here BMD, for example, no? And then that's tagged with that. And if I go to the color page and then I look in color and I just want to see that specific BMD, I can
Mhm.
find it. So this makes it easy with what I'm gonna do next, no? Just to have everything well organized to start with, especially because it's not like a feature that you have like stuff made for a specific part and different shots of the same thing. It's that sometimes you get just one shot of one thing and you have to try and use it the best you can, no?
Yeah.
So it's a bit more you need more skill, I think, for like storytelling with documentary footage. And because it comes from so many different cameras, you also have to know how to manage it accordingly so that when you get stuff in, it's been like developed, if you want to say it like that, or color managed the correct way so that you
Yeah.
can see the actual footage or the actual shot that the director of photography was intending. You know?
Yeah, and actually, you explained one thing that I guess is really important, because in most of the things when you're doing fiction and so on, it's like you start grading and that's it. Here you are thinking about the footage, because every
Yeah,
footage will react different, and in a documental, you say you have a variety of footage, and if you organize it first, then you will know what to expect and so on. And if you're working in color management, you will know what to or how to color manage that kind of footage.
exactly.
Exactly. And I think I bet also during the footage acquisitions, during the acquisition process itself, I think like the team don't have like enough time to like tailor everything to get the photography like the best in the world, so to say. Probably there will be a rush. You have to capture a moment. The light is not perfect, and so on and so forth. So regarding that, how do you manage like this all this different mixed bag of footage, apart from just color coding them and how
But
do you call it,
actually,
tagging them?
Max, maybe
Yeah,
before that, I want to ask that, like, do you conform the
yeah,
documental, Gino,
exactly.
or do you ask for a render and you cut it? How is that workflow before, like, even go to
Yeah,
the Max question?
I do conform. I do conform.
Mm,
I sometimes do it myself. Sometimes I have an assistant doing it for me.
Yeah.
But I like conforming it because it gives me more flexibility as well. I have a workflow that uses remote grading. So
mm.
being remote, being that my workflow, I need it to like come from the source. No, I don't need it to be cut because otherwise it doesn't work and it's
Yes,
slower.
working with remote versions, right?
Exactly. I use remote versions a lot, especially for documentary, because remote versions allows me, for example, if there's several cuts of the same
Yeah.
interview, okay, I grade one and they will all be graded the same. So that's excellent.
Wow.
So I'm gonna show you that in a bit. No, that's
So at
part of
some
my
point, you
workflow.
you prefer conforming because it makes you faster when grading,
Yeah, I prefer
even when
conforming.
you
I
can
mean,
lose some time in conforming documentaries, because as we say, like documentaries, grading documentaries, it can be harder, but conforming documentaries is like
I
definitely
know.
harder.
Well, when you have
That
15 years of experience,
yeah,
it's okay.
that will need another sessions, I guess, for the
Yes,
conforming part.
yes, it can be a nightmare. It can be a nightmare to conform
Yeah,
documentaries.
I mean, to be honest,
Yeah.
as a colorist, I really don't like that part, conforming.
I mean,
I
nor
ra-
do I, but you know what I've done? I've convinced all the editors I work with to start editing in Resolve, so they are no, I don't have to conform anymore. I just get the
yeah,
project.
yeah,
That's
Yes,
what you have to
so
do. Just convince them.
yes.
I mean, it's
yeah.
harder on some industries like this one where like Avid is like a big player, right? But I think that in, for example, in Peru and stuff like that, where there's not such a big industry like leaning towards Avid, it's easier, or with independence, no?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, yes, because I remember that, and I ask you that because I remember when I was doing documentary for Nat Geo, our workflow, because it was like a fast workflow, was to ask for a render file because we didn't have time for conforming. And I don't know if it happened with you, but in documentaries they spend a lot of time editing, so the calendar always breaks. So the time that you have for grading, first you can say, okay, give me 5 days, and then it's reducing to three, and then it's reducing to two, and then you say,
Yep.
okay, send me please this thing, send me please this timeline.
This is one of my main things that I used to convince these people because I tell them, look, you could still be editing and I can start grading before you're done. So that's a
Yeah.
big plus for you, for me, because the project will look better at the end. I'll have more time to dedicate to it. If you hired me for 5 days, I will be able to give you those 5 days. I don't have to like cramp those 5 days into two, which will like affect the project, I think, no, in a way.
Yeah, yeah, and even as you say, like if you conform, you can ask for a, I don't know, for a fine cut before the picture lock, and then you color trace, uh, what they did with the picture lock, and it will be at some point faster.
Yeah, what I do is I'm using remote, the cloud-based workflow. So I
Yeah,
have them editing on proxies, and I
yeah.
have all the high-res footage, and I can see what they're doing. I can start doing tests while they're
That's
working.
even better. Collaborative. It
So
will
yeah,
be like a picture lock
yeah,
open. That will be nice. That is nice.
yeah, and
So
the
we
way
need
we have
more
it set up,
resource
yeah,
editors.
yeah, I'm trying to get those. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm trying to get more people in it, but I mean, it's hard to get them to switch. Once they switch, they don't want to go back. That's the thing. So that's good. But the switching part is the hard one because it's shortcuts. It's convincing them that they're gonna be slower at the beginning, but they
Yeah,
eventually will get faster. It's a learning curve that I mean, we have to go through it, right?
yeah, yeah. All right. So now, sorry, Max, I interrupt your question, but I
No
think it was
problemo.
important to see how
I
he
speak
got the
too
footage.
much.
I mean, otherwise I will never know how about the conforming process. That's really great.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the question, Max? You said.
I,
Yeah, the color management. How do you do it, man?
okay.
All right.
Okay, so once I have everything sorted, I have all my clips like organized, you could say. I go
Yeah.
to my color page or color tab, and then I just get that out. And I've got all of these shots with from different cameras. Okay, so what I'm gonna start doing is I've done these presets, okay, and each preset contains um, like a node structure that contains a color space transform that will transform the from camera log to whatever I'm working on. What I usually do is I work on the color space of what's being shot the most, of what the main camera is. For example, in this situation, we're gonna do this like Ari. So Ari will be our main camera here.
Yeah.
And what I do first is I go to the end, to that timeline level. I do a node with the color space transforming here. Okay, and I put the ARI white gamut 3 and ARI log C3 to Rec 709 gamma 2.4. Okay, so that will get me like at the end something that is like developed or like color managed. For
Yes.
example,
Map
this
map
is
to the image.
yeah, mapped to the image. So this image is Ari. So what happened here is when I put this, it changes from this to this, which is what we want. So this is all black magic. So what do we do when we already have everything sorted, when we have the color space transform at the end? So like our output color space, I will go here to clips and use my metadata to make it easier. So I want to see all of the ARI shots. I press here. These are all my ARI shots. I just, uh,
Let you
gr-
filter.
yeah. Oh, yeah. The first thing I want to do is I want to use the remote, right? The one we talked about. So I'm using local at the moment. So I want to change to use remote. See? Now, all of these clips are linked. So if I do something to this, it will go to the others, you see? So if I, for example, change the color in this, if I just over or put my exposure high, you see they're all being affected at the same time because it's the same clip. It's just different cuts of it. So that's a remote advantage, no? You do, however, have to be careful because sometimes you don't know, or sometimes, especially in documentary, if you're shooting a person and then you turn to the other side, light might vary, and you can see that shot and not know it's
Yeah.
linked to another shot. And if you start moving that, you could be moving like 5 other shots the wrong way, you know? So you have to always be alert to this little symbol here when you're doing like any sort of drastic.
So what you do in
Uh,
that case is, do you create a new version,
yes,
or
exactly. I create a
all
new
right,
version.
all
Yes.
right, perfect. And at the end of when you have like almost everything match, do you like reset the, or not reset, like switch the remote versions to local to start like fixing every shot, or you finish
Uh,
with the remote version?
In documentary, I finished with a remote version mostly because there's
All
not that
right.
many masks and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And if I'm gonna do mask, for example, on this, what I do is if I'm gonna have a mask done on her face, I
Yeah.
just go to the next one and I have this on, like the frame. I just move it to where I want it and then just track it and move it to where I want it and I just track it shot by shot. So, for example, if at the end, like the director says, I think this is too contrasty, just this interview, I can then just, for example, use my notary at the end and tweak it, and this they all will be tweaked like accordingly, right?
All right.
Okay, so look,
Yeah. I.
for
That's
what
really
I'm gonna
fast.
do, yeah, what I'm gonna do is here, I'm gonna start putting everything to its place. So this is black magic. I'm gonna put this node structure on these. I'm gonna see what other ones I have. For example, okay, I wanna see the Sony. Okay, this is Sony. So I'm gonna put the Sony on this one. Okay, and so on, right? So I start like looking at my different keywords and adding the different node structures I have for each different camera to it. You know, at the end, what will happen is we're gonna end up with footage that if you play through it, I mean, it's all from different cameras,
Yeah.
but it's all been like transformed into 709, or in this case, it's all been transformed into for example, this is Sony, okay? But because we're working on the what's it called, ARRI color space, because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what we have the most. What I do is I color space transform from Sony to ARRI, and then at the end it goes from ARRI to Rec 709. Or if I'm going to HDR, I'll use a different flavor of the output, right?
All right.
And
So
same for archive footage, which you also get a lot like stock footage and stuff. I use Rec 709. So we transform Rec 709 to the ARRI and then back again.
so you're kind of
What?
like creating presets for your workflow, right, Gino?
Yes.
So
And these presets
it's
are easily,
exactly
yeah. What you do to
so it's
create these presets is really easy. Once you have established, like, for
mhm,
example, I know this is Black Magic, Ursa.
yeah.
So what I do is I make something like this on top, you know? And then I go to my color tab and I have to make sure I'm on this clip that holds the
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 structure.
node
Yeah.
structure, yeah.
Structure.
And then what I do is I just come here, I'm gonna delete this one, okay,
And
delete,
save
and then
state.
and I just grab a still. So whenever, if imagine
Nice.
this doesn't have this,
All
just
right.
middle press here and voila, we're
Yeah,
done.
that's
So
nice. So you are saving exactly the same node structure except for the color space transform, right?
yeah, exactly. The color space
Nice.
Yeah.
transform, I mean, it varies. For example, this has a
Yeah.
color space transform that is from Canon. This one has one from Red. This one has from Black Magic. So I have different ones that it's as easy as just pressing on it, no?
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
yeah.
That's a
So
sorry.
fast
so
way to work. Yeah.
so the question is why? Why are you transforming all of the cameras to one camera? Is that going to give you an advantage or grading, or what is the reason?
I mean, we're all working on the same color space. So if I'm gonna apply any LUT or any correction, we're on the same like color space,
Family.
and it
Even
works for
that
me.
if it's a GoPro or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because there's lots for ARI as well.
Yeah.
So it's a nice. I think I like the curve, and it's a
Yeah.
nice
And the reason
nice color
that you are
space.
doing this by node and not by, let's think, by a project settings
Yeah,
and a color framework like
that's a good
Aces or
question.
like Resolve
Mm.
color manage, what is the reason that you select doing this process?
Yeah, I think it gives you more flexibility because especially for documentaries, when you get footage or when you're doing HDR stuff, especially for SDR, I haven't had this issue, but
Yeah.
for HDR, what happens is when you have like Rec 709 footage that has the whites all the way to 100 nits, I mean, when you map that to PQ or P3, Rec 2020 and 1,000 nits, I mean, you're getting that 100 nits turned into 1,000 nits, and it's too much. Sometimes things are clipped and it looks really bad. So what I
Yeah.
tend to do with that is I go into my color space transform and then I use my custom output and I just tweak this, you know? So if I want to, if this is like over the top for me, I'll just lower it or I just adjust this specific parameter and it helps me with all the archive footage, which sometimes is like really
Yes.
bad quality. So for me, that's a big plus.
Yes.
Another
So you're
thing is when you're using aces, sometimes colors tend to break.
Yeah.
And the advantage this gives me is that if I'm working on one of these two nodes before the color space transform, I can tweak stuff before my aces, you know, so
Mhm.
it gives me
Yeah.
lots of flexibility for that.
Yeah. So at some point you have like flexibility, and you can say you can play with a tone mapping that you cannot do that by
No,
clip when it's a project
exactly.
settings, and also you have two nodes for preparing the footage.
And if you're gonna use Fusion as well, I mean, I don't know if it does it still, but it used to do it where you just I mean, the color space was not represented correctly when you used to have that like
Yeah.
project management workflow, right?
Yeah,
The color
I think
project.
it is. It is still a problem to
So
this day. I mean, I
now I
haven't
don't have that
updated.
I don't have that
Yeah.
problem now because I just go to Fusion and it's whatever the footage is. I mean,
Yeah,
if
Fusion is before color grading. So at
Yeah.
some point, it's like
yeah,
the clip that you do in Fusion, it will be like the result. You will be, I don't know, grading in color.
exactly. So it's not like see, it's flat, and that's how I want to work on that, and it's good. Yeah. I
That's
mean, it gives
nice.
me more flexibility, a lot more flexibility. That's why I use it, I think. And also, I mean, the note structure for me is very important as well because this is something I learned from a great colorist, Walter Volpato,
Oh, I love Walter Volpato.
who's a
I
friend
learned
of
a lot
mine,
from that guy. Yeah.
and he's taught me a lot, and I've seen lots of videos from him. I mean, I'm a big fan of him, and he taught me, and he learned from another colorist as well, this note structure, which is for
Mm.
this is a note structure that I've started using. I haven't modified it yet. I've seen he's modified his, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
happy working with this, and it gives me that sort of order that I like working in. For like I have stuff that's already like prepared to allocate stuff in, you know. For example, my noise reduction is here, and I have like the render thing put on as well. So I got a node cache and I have it in on. So if I turn this on, it won't lag when playback. It just renders it and then it plays smoothly, and I can do whatever tweak afterwards and no problem. And my
So I
color
have
space transform.
I have one question about that, Gino. It's like, I don't know. I'm the kind of colorist that don't like so many notes
Hmm.
because when matching, it's hard. So I remember that the last documentary I did, the main colorist, he plays like 20 notes, and then we took that episode and we say like what, and then we need to match. So at the end, what we did was like reduce that, I don't know, that 20 note structure to 7 notes, 8 notes, and it was easiest for matching. What do you think? Because right now you have a big note structure that in fiction, I don't know, yeah, maybe, but in documentaries when matching is harder, definitely harder. How do you feel it?
I mean, I use the base to match everything.
Yeah.
That's my main node. I mean, once I have the base done, I mean, for me, my the way I work is this is my like my hero node really. That gives me like
All right.
the basis to everything. And then I have these are my like my eight main element node. It could be like the sky maybe, you
Yeah.
know. This is like the earth or the ground or the floor. Then I have like this is for characters, like my main character one, main character two, main character three, which are specific for that. And this, as you can see, this all comes from the base, you know, the base goes here, and then you can do the picking of the sky or whatever, and the same for here. And this node won't affect these either, you see,
Yeah.
because you're not doing something global, it's like secondary. And so this is specific to characters, which won't affect anything else. Then we have here for high and lows and curve uses. So this is for beauty, like if you want to take out wrinkles and stuff. And these are all like free to get like different elements of the shot. And then after all of this is done, like where I got my lighting correct and my color and everything, I have these nodes, which are like trims for whatever I got from this. So
Right.
I start trimming one, and I can, for example, put a look here, and for example, and then start like this is not the best shot for this, but for example, I can then have this put back into like a different color and stuff like that. You see, I can start moving stuff around. This is a very bad example, but but yeah,
So
you
the
know what I
trim
mean, I
is
think.
so the trim is actually after the base grade.
Yeah, these trims are after
Yeah,
the base grade and after the details as well. You see the
yeah,
secondaries and the different elements on the shot. So this is like an over all of what you've done here, like fix or tweak if you want to put the highlights up or low or the lows. Then you got OFX, and then we
yeah.
have like the vignettes, like they're already like done for you here. So
All
you
right.
just go in here and you're done. You just move whatever you want. And then these are all like trims for after your presentation, you know, where you have like the, okay, no, this is like too saturated or too this or too that. You just tweak things around. And the advantage of having that same structure on all the nodes is that, for example, if you get asked to modify all these shots because they say, oh, it's too high, the highlights are too high, or it's too contrasty, you just go here and, for example, you just take away contrast, and then you go here to color, and then go to where ripple node
Ripple
changes to
node.
selected clips,
Yeah.
and this
And
will
it will,
do it
yeah.
for all of them, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So this will not happen if you have a node structure that varies from shot to shot.
Yeah.
So this is a very fast correction method, you know?
So now that you talk about like a shared node, have you used that shared node in your structure? Like,
I really don't use shared nodes that
yeah,
much. What I do if I want to share stuff or looks, what I do is I establish groups. For
yeah,
example, if I want to establish a look for the Mercedes shots at the beginning, what I do is I do a right click, and then I do add into new group, and then I put like a benzo look. Okay, and then I have this where I can, I don't know, if I want to put a LUT into this, I can put a LUT in here, you know, with, I mean, I'm just gonna do an easy one. Yeah, this one. So I just put this on, and then this will give the look for the whole thing, you know? Or I can tweak stuff here as well, I know. If I tweak stuff here, I can just like put a bit warmer the shots. Like this. And this will be applied to all of it. So for documentary, this is great,
yeah.
especially when I got like reenactment stuff. So I group all the reenactment stuff together that's from the same thing. And I just put the LUT or the look I want on it, and then I tweak stuff like independently, you know? So
Got it.
for me, this is more like I don't use the shared notes that much.
So, Gino, on a question, I have a questions on because we were mentioning about the look and so on. I have a questions about your process, your thinking process of creating looks. First is that like, do you create looks first and then after that matching under the look, or do you like balance everything first and then after that you create the look on top of that? And let's answer that first, and then after that um let's go to another questions.
Yeah, I
I'm curious.
I mean, depends. Sometimes they're shooting with a LUT on top already, and I have to use a
Mhm.
LUT to balance things out. But some other times when I'm not sure what look I want to give it, I try to balance things out with a base first, like get them like in a ballpark, like all looking the same or as much the same as I can, because that
Yeah.
makes it so much easier at the end when I'm gonna apply the LUT. They will all look the same. because
No, and I
Got it.
think also it's like, okay, in fiction, probably most of the shots will look similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
They have control light, they have, so you can put a lot at the
they have
end,
a
or even a
bigger
look.
budget too.
Yes, and everything will match. Everything will fit automatically in that look. But
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure in a documentary, let's think that is not a documentary with big budget, a normal or an independent documentary. If you choose, if you put a look in the post group or even a look lot, everything will be look different. So I'm agree
yeah.
with your strategy. It's like
I
first you need to
mean,
balance
yeah,
everything
I
and
know.
put everything in levels.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
what I've done with the people I work with, documentaries, I mean, it's everything is to do with the communication you have with the director of photography, I think. I mean, if you're friends with him and you have a good relationship with him, I mean, on these last documentaries I've been doing, they're all HDR, and I mean, because I have knowledge of HDR, I've transmitted that to the DP, and we've been doing tests and stuff like that. We used the Shogun 7 monitor to do tests, and that was the monitor he was shooting with. But before this, they didn't even calibrate the monitors they were using. So you can
Mm.
imagine that I get like a green, the same interview, two cameras, one green, one red. So that was painful to like to match, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never get it to look exactly the same either. It's like really hard or very, very hard. So what I told them is to get one of these like what are these called? Like the color charts, you know? These color charts, okay?
Yeah.
Exactly. So whenever I get the interview, I match it in 3 seconds, literally, because
Yes.
I have the card and I just tuk, 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 match it. Okay, we're done. I can start being
That's nice.
creative, you know? Because
That's
matching
very
has, I
nice.
mean, it's not creative, you know?
Yeah.
Matching is just like you gotta do it. But then comes the creative part for me. It's like
Yeah.
Yes.
the
So at some
beauty of
point you
it,
are
you know?
doing more of these cards for matching colors because you are doing color space transform in your other nodes. This one is more for matching, right?
Yeah, I mean
All right.
that one I use for matching really. That's just once I have my color space transform, maybe I can use this on the balance node, and it just gives me a instant thing. There's some other times when they just have to grab the camera and start shooting. They did not have time to do much, so that those shots are the hardest ones. You know, that's
Yeah.
the beauty of documentary. I mean, you get stuff that's really nicely shot, and you get stuff that's a challenge to make it look nice with the other stuff. You know.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's nice.
So you mostly using LUT to create your main look, so to say, Gino.
Nah, sometimes I use LUTs, sometimes I use my own like
Hmm.
I just tweak stuff around. I'm using a lot the HDR wheels to do looks
Yeah.
because it gives me like the shadows, it grabs onto the shadows really nicely and I can like turn the shadows a bit like magenta or like bluish or like teal, whatever I
Speaking of,
want. And
yeah, I just want to say, speaking of looks, I think you really you got to check it out, man. You got to check out Magic Bullet looks from Maxon as well.
Yeah. Let's see how it
very
works.
good things. Yeah,
Have
Yeah.
let's
you
do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
ever seen how Magic Bullet look works? By the way.
I've used it a while back, but I
Oh,
haven't used it
it has
since. So
evolved.
I'm really want to see it.
It has evolved. Let me show you my screen if you don't mind.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
please.
Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah. I think Diego and I we played around a lot with Magic Bullet looks in this channel. So one thing is that the newest iterations of Magic Bullet looks is that now it support Aces. So if you want to work
Nice.
in Aces, it has open color IO support in it, so you can go anything, in and out. And also, if you don't like to work with Aces, there's also another mode that is called the 1D color handling. And here you can just strip off the Aces transform and just do the 1D transform. So with this 1D transform, only the gamma, only the tone curve got
Okay.
transform, but the color space remain as
So
it
the
is.
color space curve, it doesn't affect it. It just like if I have my curve already set up, like with my color management thing, I can put that, for example, on my group with just gives me the
Yeah,
look, right?
I
Nice.
think if you have like as you set up, I think you set it up in Ari. If you want to, you can just use 1D color handling, set it to
Nice.
Ari Loxy in and
Okay.
Ari Loxy out, then that it should be
Yeah,
okay.
it
But
will
if
not
you
make
want,
any transformation at some point. It will be like
yeah,
a bypass, right?
exactly.
All
That's
right.
nice.
And what's I really love with Magic Bullet looks is that there are like some tools that add texture to your clip. So for example, and this is like very hard to replicate like by hands. So for example, this optical diffusions, if you can see in the highlights, and also the halations, because normally when we are working with a some film print or film negative model, we need to add the halations. And
Mm.
what's nice is that there's two optical diffusions and halations. It's actually based on the same engine, and they are created use the they are created by by how do you call it, respecting the principle, the rendering principle. It's called the energy conserving. So what it means is that doesn't matter how hard you push the optical diffusions or halations, the exposure will not change because it's not generating its own light, but it's just like using whatever light available in the scene and give you the output.
And that works in 32 floating as well, like DaVinci.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, it has its own interface, so it's
Okay.
not, how do you call it? It's not available in the OFX, the setting. So
Okay.
you need to go into the designer interface.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
what's nice is that also what I want to point out that sometimes people love to work with a lot of LUT, right? So for example, if I just want to use any LUT, for example, just use like Kodak 2383 in this case, you can use Magic Bullet looks not to create all the majority of your looks. So for example, if I just want to add texture, you can just like, for example, here, let me just set it to aces in and out. And if I just want to add diffusions and grain and confirm it, I can also do that. So you can really pair it with your favorite LUTs and any other
Yes, at some
tool.
point it's an
That's
advantage that is like flexible color manage. That's what I like it.
yeah, especially if you're color managing things in the node. It's
Yeah, and at some point it's giving, for example, in this case, Max talk about aces because Max love aces. But Gino say, no, I'm using another color manage, and it still can work. It still can work even in aces or in the color manage that is doing Gino right now. That is more control color manage. I think so.
yeah.
And DaVinci White Gamut as well.
Yeah, and even
At the
Da Vinci with
moment,
Gamma.
yeah. At the moment, it's not natively supporting the DaVinci White Gamut, but there are plenty of workaround on
Because
that.
that was my go-to like color space before I started working in that like native camera color space. I used to work in
Yeah,
DaVinci White Gamut a lot because it like really put everything together nicely, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
actually, yeah, say Max.
I think a lot of like colorists love that because it doesn't have the RRT, the rendering reference transform like what ACES do, like this filmic contrast that they do in the output transform, isn't it? So
It
you
sticks too
have
much.
like
Like it's too contrasty for me. I don't know. Like the blacks are too like on the floor
Yeah, but
on
yeah,
aces.
actually,
yeah.
for example, in the color space transform node, Gino actually can control that tone mapping curve. He can
Mm,
control to normal, to Da Vinci, to luminous mapping, and
Yeah,
he can
that's
some
nice.
sliders to control it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely supporting Gino's workflow because of
Oh
that.
yeah. Something else I did not say. I mean, when I'm working, usually I see people working like in their color management, their timeline color space, it's in Rec 709. Yeah.
yeah,
I use the Arilog C3 or whatever or DaVinci White Gamma or like I try not to like constrain myself to the 709 because it like limits me, especially with the HDR tool.
Yeah.
exactly. Because by default, it
So
is always referring to the project management, isn't it?
yeah, and like it will like cut the highlights and stuff, I think.
Yeah.
For example, look here. You see, it goes past the 100 nits. You see,
Yeah.
so you have all the capability of going from speculars to highlights, and then from lights, etc. I mean, it's a
That's
great
good.
tool.
So we talk already about matching looks, but I think the hardest thing in documentaries, Gino, is what everyone hates, and it's called QC, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. How you manage with QC? Because I know you work with Nat Geo, and I used to work with Nat Geo also. And I remember that we delivered something, and then the QC has like, I don't know, like 3 pages of problems. How
I
you
mean,
manage that?
I it's I barely get like comments for image. What we do sometimes fail in is like audio, just getting the audio the right tracks or getting the configuration for the audio. That's what like it's harder for us. But with the workflow we have, the the color and the light will constrain to whatever you tell it to, so it won't go over. So you won't be like blowing up like limits or stuff like that at all. So I haven't had I mean what we do for QC is we look out for stuff that could happen on the render, for example, maybe like
Yeah.
glitches and stuff like that that can happen, no?
Yeah, maybe
I
dead pixels and so
uh,
on.
dead pixels, stuff like yeah. I have never had anything for dead pixels. I try and fix them, but I'm sure I've missed some. But what they usually see is that your like lows are not like too milky, or that like if it's like
Yeah.
there's no curves on the bottom side of of the scopes, that you're not like crushing it and then just lifting it and it just looks bad, or there's like different limits on the blacks. But I mean, if you did your job well, I mean, you shouldn't have that, I think. No?
Yeah, but I think it's something that you need to spend time. It's
And
like,
yeah, you have to. I mean, what I usually do is I export and then have someone other than me look at it, because I'm like so
yes.
saturated with the project that I won't be able to find anything. And I usually, when I do that, I start changing stuff, and I don't want that. So,
Yes, and also like reading the manual specs of the TV channel that
yeah,
is
that's,
going
yeah,
to
I
write
mean,
it.
that's the first thing you have to do, because you have to know what you're gonna deliver to. You know, so you have that's the first thing you have to do to get your settings the right way. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think it's really a hardest point in documentaries because you have a lot of kind of footage, so quality control is big. And for
Yeah,
example, talking about the scopes, do you use internal scopes from Resolve
yeah.
or do you use external? And the reason I'm saying is because I mean, talking about quality control is like you want to see the image not from the software and you want to see the image directly from the GPU, from the video card. So how
Yeah.
is your workflow about that?
Here I don't have an external. I have external scopes here, but they're like 1080, so I could use those.
Yeah.
They're like old school. Look, I'm gonna show you.
Yeah, the
These are
smart.
old school, like really old school.
Yeah, is that a leader? Tektronix? Yes.
Yeah, liter,
Leader
liter,
or
yeah,
Tektronix? Yes. And
liter, yeah,
I remember that I love that ones. I love that one. They were so expensive.
yeah. I mean, I'm using internals in Peru. At Gamma Post House, we have the Da Vinci external ones.
Yeah.
So we have that on top of the monitor. So when we're playing back, we just look up and we can see it's in range. But
Yeah.
I mean, usually we get sometimes like complaints about like the archive, because sometimes it's interlaced, and I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing to do because they did not de-interlace it before they turn it to de-interlace, you know? So you
Yeah.
can see all the lines, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, I haven't found a workaround yet to fix that.
Yes, it will be more restoration than turning all the fields into one.
I mean, and you don't have budget for that. I mean, for a documentary, I think. So they just live with it, and you just have to say, "Yo, this has these issues." So
Yeah, yeah,
be
yeah.
mindful about that before you throw the QC back at me saying I failed.
All right, but
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's I mean, I remember that. Yeah, we do have that the scopes, the technical scopes. and that were really expensive. And what I like is that they were showing a lot of gamut, like alerts, luminance things. And at some point, we were like finishing the grading and then play and then look at the scopes, and it was showing you like problem here, 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 fix them.
I mean, I'm always looking at the scopes while I'm working, so it's
Yeah,
like I try to make the shadows be at the same level or as close as they can. Depends on the scenery and stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you do a good job, I think when doing the
yeah,
grade, you shouldn't have any problems at the end. I think unless there's a bug or something at the export.
that's good. That's good. So I think for I don't know, say Max.
Yeah, I just want to like chime in because Gino just mentions bug on the export. It just reminds me though, but because at the end it's like the delivery matters. Is there any tips and tricks that you can share with us regarding delivery, Gino?
I mean, delivery is pretty straightforward. It's basically what they're asking you to deliver. So you have a bunch of
Based on the
stuff.
specs, then yeah.
Yeah, based on the specs. So what I
But you
usually
say
do
something really
is,
important. It's like ask for the manual and do what they wanted at
I
some
mean,
point.
imagine you don't ask for the manual and you start grading and then you say, yo, I wanted that in P3. And you're like, oh, can they do so? So yeah, I
Get
mean,
the delivery right before starting the project.
yeah, and having this color managed as well, I think it's so important
Yeah.
because if something was to happen along the way, you could always change your output and then just tweak a little bit and then you're basically done. But if you're not color managed, I think, you're not so great.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I mean, for delivers, it's important to have the resolution correct, the frame rate correct, and
And then the audio configuration correct.
the audio configuration. Man, yeah, that's the thing that always bugs me. I mean, and that, yeah, I mean, you have to work with this. Yes, see, this is something that I just noticed when I am 12-bit now for the footage I have here, and when I go to Fairlight, I think it goes to 10-bit, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, what I do is I sometimes when they ask me for different configurations, I just have to configure it through Fairlight, no? To the bus
Yeah,
format, and you have to change it here, put whatever you need, etc., etc. I mean, it's really important when you're before you deliver. Just I always watch it through, just and check out this what's it called, the mixer, because it will show up in the mixer too. So
yes,
if you're pretending to give them 5.1 and you only see like two channels bouncing around, you're not doing the right thing. You have to
yeah,
have the thing correct. So basically keep an eye out for all the details, keep an eye out for what they're asking you for. And I mean, HDR deliverables are a bit more tricky because they sometimes ask you to limit to 2020, no, to limit to P3 on a 2020 color space and stuff like
yeah,
that. And when you're working on the automated like color space management or color
Yeah.
management in DaVinci, it's easier. But when you're doing it with nodes, there's like an extra node you have to put on.
that's good. That's
Got
good.
it. That deserve another sessions for, just for the deliverables.
At
Yeah,
least
yeah.
HDR especially, and
And
Yeah.
now
there's
that
Dolby Vision.
yeah, and now that you're talking HDR, I really want to know your opinion. Is because I mean, we have talked in the show about HDR in film, HDR in series, HDR in video clips, but I seriously think that HDR in documentaries gives more, definitely more,
Way
because I
much more.
mean, my point of view is that in films, people are kind of scared about what HDR can do. Yes, it's doing something, but they conserve the same aesthetic and so on. But HDR in documentaries looks absolutely beautiful. So what is your idea about it?
I mean, as you say, people are scared. People are
Yeah,
scared because, I mean, it's human to be scared of change, I think. So
yeah,
this is
yeah,
a
yeah.
big change. That it's a big leap that going from 100 to 1,000, going to a bigger color space, a wider, broader color space. I mean, it's shooting differently, having different exposure to things. I think it's an amazing technology. I really like it. I really like what it does to documentaries, as you say. I've been pushing it for music videos as well, which not many people are doing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do that as well because well, I have I have ways of doing it because I have the monitor and everything. But I also, I mean, the more I do of it, the more practice I have on it, and the better
Yeah.
I will get on it. So I'm trying to always do stuff in HDR, and I think that yeah, I mean, you have so much details on the shadows that it doesn't all have to be brighter, you know. It can be really dark, like what you're used to seeing, but you have more details on those shadows, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
gives you a different ambience or a different mood to things, or it gives you more. I don't know. It's nicer, but yeah, it's hard for some people to wrap their head around what advantages it could give you on
Yeah,
the
and
final
I always
product.
think that they want to continue doing the same of what they like. But
I
that's
mean,
the
it's
thing.
it's the same as editors changing to Resolve. I mean, it's a learning curve, and you're gonna mess up on the way, I'm sure. I mean, everyone's messed up on the way on the learning curve, so I think people don't like
exactly.
messing up.
That's good. Nice.
Definitely,
Yeah.
we really need to revisit that idea of talking about the HDR delivery one more
Yeah,
time with Gino.
Perfect.
yeah,
Right.
sounds great.
I have my eyes on the clock. It seems like too bad that we are coming to an end. Every good things has to come to
Mm.
end, and I really would love to. I mean, thank you, Gino, once again for sharing your experience with us,
Oh,
and hopefully you will come back in the show, you know, and talk more about the
thank you guys so much for having
other
me.
interesting
Thank you guys so
topics.
much for having me, really. I've had a
Yes.
great
It's
time.
been a pleasure.
No, we're
It's been
really
a pleasure.
glad.
It's been a
Yeah,
great
It,
time.
it's a pleasure.
the hour just went by really fast.
The hours just went by really fast. Yes, and yeah, let me just grab your screen and do the housekeeping again. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And if you want to check more of the Maxon events, please go to maxon.net/events, and there you'll see there are plenty of webinars coming on Maxon channel. And if you want to get your free T-shirt, make sure that you go into the link that is posted on the chat today, and be sure to use the code Cinema 4D workflows to enter the store, and you can get one of this T-shirt free of charge. And if you want to watch the recording or any other webinars recording, go to YouTube and type in Maxon Training Team, and you'll be able to watch the recording of all the webinars. And I also would love to thank you, Kyle, for producing the show. Kyle is with us today, and he's just behind the curtain. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Kyle.
And
Thank you, Kyle.
yeah, and thank you, Diego, and thank you, Gino. Hopefully, we'll meet again soon. All right?
We
Sure.
will.
Thank you,
We will.
Diego. Thank you, Max. We had a
Thank you.
great time.
Ciao.
Awesome. And with that being said, my name is Max. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next Max on Color. Bye bye.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.